Alrighty, you all, we are going over some practice questions for our real estate general exam. These are 60 questions. We're going to do part 1 and part 2. So we're going to go with 30 and then we're going to do another 30. We're going over forms of ownership / transfer. I'm going to say the question and I'm only going to say the answer. So yeah, let's get straight into it. Which of the following statements is true regarding a condominium? D. The owners have an undivided interest in the common areas. It says in a condominium, the owners do have an undivided interest, which is shares possession in the common areas such as pools, hallways, etc. When ownership is conveyed through the transfer of stocks, this is D. Corporative. It says a corporative is a multi-unit building where the people who occupy the units own stock in corporation, thereby receiving a right to lease the unit from the corporative itself. A condominium development with a long-standing established homes association would be governed by the B. Association of Unit Owners. It says the unit owners govern themselves through a home association. What is the greatest type of interest an owner can receive in a condominium? A. Fee simple. It says condominiums are a form of ownership. Fee simple is a maximum rights an owner can have. What interest does a condominium owner have in common with other condominium owners? C. Undivided interest in the common areas. Condominium owners are tenants in common in the common areas such as pools, halls, etc. Persons who buy into a corporative receive which of the following items? A. Shares of stock. An owner of a condominium unit failed to pay the property taxes. Which of the following acts is most likely to occur? D. Ownership of the condominium unit will be jeopardized. A person buys a unit of condominiums. The person then does not pay the taxes on that individual's condominium unit. Which statement best describes what will happen in this case? C. Only the one person's individual unit will be affected by a tax lien. The rules and regulations of the condominium owners are listed in the B. Condominium bylaws. Two brothers own a property 50-50. When one dies, the other brother gains full ownership. The term best used to describe this type of ownership is A. Joint tenancy. It says joint tenancy is a form of ownership where two or more parties own property together, carries the right of survivorship. When an owner dies, the ownership interest goes to the surviving owners, not the heirs. The term best describes property owned solely and separately is A. Servility. Because servility is a situation where one person only owns the property, also how corporations take title. Which of the following types of ownership specifically refers to a married couple with a right of survivorship? B. Tenants by entirety. Tenancy by entirety requires a husband and wife with right of survivorship. If one spouse dies, their interest would pass to the surviving spouse. In order to have a joint tenancy, there must be the unities of title, interest, possession, and C. Time of acquisition. Ownership and servility is described as one person owns that property. A child owes A child owns a life estate and sells the property to a friend. Which of the following statements is true regarding their friend estate? B, it ends when the child dies. It says a life estate can be sold. However, the person who bought the property will eventually lose it when the life tenant dies. T deeds a property to L, giving L a life estate in the property. T also selects R to receive the property after L dies. When L dies, this would become in D, estate in remainder. It says T designed R to receive the property. When L dies, therefore, when L dies, R receives the property under an estate in remainder. Which of the following best terms describe an estate where the title does not pass back to the grantor? B, remainder. A remainder estate passes to a third party upon the death of a life tenant. Owner J gave J's housekeeper a life estate in a property. J also stipulated that the property goes to J's child when the housekeeper died. J died prior to the housekeeper. J's child is referred to as B, remainder man. The remainder man is the person who receives the property upon the death of the life tenant. A parent transferred ownership in a property to his child. The child's ownership interest was to last just for the child's lifetime. The child's interest in the property is referred to as C, life estate. Which of the following will be a tax deductible on an individual's personal tax return? B, mortgage interest on their residence. It says to encourage home ownership, mortgage interest is tax deductible on a personal residence. Which of the following properties would an owner be able to depreciate for tax purposes? C, an owner's past residence that is now rented out. Owners may only depreciate for tax purposes in investment rental properties. If a tenant stays over without the landlord's permission, this is called B, estate at sufferance. In estate at sufferance, the landlord suffers because the tenant stays over without permission. Which of the following is not a leasehold estate? D, life estate. What is used to describe the right of the lessor to reclaim a property once a lease expires? B, reversion. It says the right of an owner to get the property back when someone else's rights expire is called B, reversion. A tenant illegally stayed past the expiration date on a lease agreement. This will be called a tenancy at sufferance. A new tenant was negotiating a lease in a rental shopping center. The tenant was new and did not have a lot prior business experience. The landlord thought that over the next few years, the tenant sales would increase quite a bit. What would the best type of lease for the landlord and tenant to enter into, which would provide a fair overall return for both parties? D, percentage, because a percentage lease involves retail space where the rent is based on a percentage of sales. When a commercial tenant is paying the common area maintenance, which is CAM, taxes and insurance, this would be called a B, net lease. A commercial tenant pays a fixed base rent plus additional money for expenses. This lease would be considered as C, net lease, because a net lease is where the tenant pays expenses. An apartment was sold to a new owner with several of the leases still in effect. Which statement best describes what happens to the lease? D, the owner must honor the lease in effect. If the tenant is paying rent, property taxes, and hazard insurance, which of the following leases is most likely in use? B, net lease, because when the tenant pays the property charges, it is a net lease. A gross lease is when a landlord pays. A lessee complained to an owner that a furnace would not work. After an extended period, the lessee finally moved out in the winter and refused to pay rent. This is known as C, a constructive eviction, because a constructive eviction is when the tenant is forced out due to the property being unusable, such as no heat in the wintertime. What is it called when a tenant is a lessee for the original tenant? A, sublease. It says when a tenant lessees existing lease household rights to another, it is sublease. In a net lease, the tenant may C, use property taxes as a tax deductible expense. Which of the following items would not always be a part of a lessee? C, an option renewal clause, because an option renewal clause is not required in a lease. A sale of interstate real estate securities will be governed by which of a sale of interstate real estate securities will be governed by which organization? C, SEC, which is Securities and Exchange Commission, oversees sales of securities. A corporation who purchases a piece of real estate as a co-owner with an individual will usually take title in which of the following manners? B, tenancy in common. Which of the following transactions will be governed by securities? B, a broker selling shares in a real estate investment trust, which is REIT. Documents are recorded to provide A, constructive knowledge, because recording documents on a public record provides constructive knowledge, meaning that members of the public have been put on notice of a particular real estate transaction, such as a sale, as it has been recorded. What is the purpose of a recording deed? B, it gives constructive notice. Recording gives B, constructive notice to the public as to the existence of a deed, delivery, and acceptance. A property has several liens against it. Upon foreclosure, which lien will take precedence? C, lien which was first recorded. Except for property taxes and sometimes mechanic liens, the date of the recording established priorities of the liens. Which of the following will be governed the recording of deeds? C, state law. Each state has its own recording acts and procedures. A seller wishes to convey an entire property to a buyer. Which of the following items in reference to the deed would be necessarily to accomplish this? A description of land, because a description of land, which is usually a legal description, is necessary in order to have a valid deed. Which does title to real estate transfer from the seller to the buyer? B, when the deed is delivered and accepted. Existing easements, restrictions, liens, and taxes are listed in which of the following clauses in a warranty deed? B, reservations. Also called expectation clause, a reservation states what is not being covered by the covenant against encumbrances in a warranty deed. In a deed, the words which clarify the purpose of the deed with the phrase to have and to hold is called a B. Habendum clause. It says a habendum clause refers to the have and to hold clause in a deed. Title is transferred when a deed is B. Delivered and accepted. Which of the following must be contained in a deed in order for a deed to be valid? A. Words of covenants. It says since the deed is usually to convey the ownership, there must be A. Words signifying the grantees do not sign deeds. Unless specified otherwise, when a property is sold, when would possessions of the property normally be given? D. Upon the deed being delivered and accepted by the buyer. In a real estate transaction, when is the title insurance typically paid? B. One time at closing. It says title insurance is paid when the policy is issued, which is at closing. Title insurance is not paid with the monthly payments. Title insurance is paid D. One time at closing. What is the purpose of title insurance? Is C. To insure against title defects. A mortgagee's title insurance policy is made to protect the B. Lender. It says a mortgagee is the lender. The lender desires to have the loan paid off if the buyer loses the property due to a faulty title. What is a schedule of expectations in a title policy? C. A list of things not insured in the policy. Which of the following items would not place a limitation on your rights in a property? C. Title insurance, because title insurance insures title and therefore does not limit rights. Notorious hostile and open use of another's property is referred to as B. Adverse possession, because adverse possession is acquiring title to another property through open, continuous, notorious, and hostile use. If a cloudy title exists, the best way to remedy the situation would be through a C. Certificate of title. A quitclaim deed is used to quiet a title. A person occupies a property in a hostile, visible, actual, and direct manner. This is best described by which of the following terms? A. Adverse possession. Which of the following is a quitclaim deed most generally used for? D. To quiet a cloud on the title. It says a cloudy title can be cleared by having the person who has potential claim in the property sign a quitclaim deed. A way to acquire property in involuntary alienation is through A. Adverse possession. And the last question is, which of the following is not a way for transfer of title to real estate to take place? D. Lease, because a lease does not transfer title to real estate. Alrighty, you all. Those are the practice questions and only the answers to forms of ownership transfer. Bye.